Welcome back to LTC News. I'm your news anchor, Al Gentili. I had no idea it was possible to grow vegetables outside all winter long in Massachusetts. The nonprofit organization Mill City Grows has the know-how, and they recently received a $400,000 grant from the USDA. Let's join co-founder Lydia Sisson at the urban farm on Middlesex Street.
Well, Mill City Grows was founded 5 years ago. Francie Slater and I started it as a way to bring food production to the city of Lowell. So we've been growing for 5 years in many different ways. We now run community gardens. We work with schools in the public school district to do school gardens and garden-based education. We run 2 urban farms, in fact we're in one right now, and we run a mobile market which brings fresh food access to different communities in the city of Lowell. And Lowell is such an amazingly diverse community that it's been wonderful to pilot different solutions to food security. And so about 2/3 of our support is through grants from foundations and government grants, and then the other third is from individual donors, sales from our mobile market, all of which go back into our programs. The grant that we just received from the USDA is called a Community Food Projects Grant. It's a 4-year grant program, and it's $400,000 over 4 years, so it's about $100,000 a year. Our major program partner is UTech, just down the street. We'll be working with them to do a lot of exciting things in their new commercial kitchen. So lots of cooking classes, but also creating value-added products and shelf-stable products. The grant really supports all of our programs, so we really tried to make it a holistic approach to creating food security in the community of Lowell. So it's almost December, but we're still growing under tons of different ways of protection. We still have beets and kale and arugula and lettuces and carrots, radishes, cilantro, herbs that are coming out of the ground. Spinach loves the cold. So we are going to be growing year-round here at this urban farm and at our bigger urban farm, and we participate in a year-round market at Mill number 5 on the 4th floor every Sunday, 11 to 3. So that's a wonderful way to get your local produce even in the winter. We also are having a lot of work in the schools right now, so this is really when we get heated up. We still do in-school garden-based education at over 12 schools we're working with right now. They've got school gardens, and we're also doing cooking classes for families after school. I think we have about 6 schools that we're working with for after-school programming. So our education team is very, very busy right now. And then in January, we start a leadership course for gardeners who will become volunteer garden coordinators in the community garden and school garden setting. The winter is also a really nice time of planning for us. So we're planning our next community gardens, getting ready for building and designing those gardens in April, planning for our next farm season, getting all of our volunteer schedules together, and it's a nice point of reflection too, kind of seeing what we were able to accomplish in the 2016 season. People think, oh, when the snow falls you won't be doing anything, but we're actually outside a lot, so feel sorry for us a little bit because it's cold.
And now, Brian Dorrington, LTC Director of Municipal Programming, brings us his City Council synopsis.
Welcome to the City Council synopsis for the meeting of December 6th, 2016. Let's start this thing off with my highlight of the night. LTC Executive Director Wendy Blom gave an absolutely fantastic presentation on the accomplishments and future goals of LTC. Some of the accomplishments mentioned was this very news program, which was brought back under her tenure. This is getting meta, folks. Blom also informed the council that as of this month, we now have 2 completely high-definition studios. Unfortunately, even though our studios are HD, we are unable to broadcast in HD because Comcast will not provide us with an HD station. We will, however, be able to broadcast HD over the internet soon, so if you're lucky enough to appear on one of our programs, make sure to wear some extra makeup to hide those pimples and wrinkles. I certainly do. 2 weeks ago, I addressed the issue involving Jarvis Volkswagen and the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail. It's a complicated issue, and if you want the entire background, head to our Facebook page to watch the episode for the week of November 17th. The brief summary is Jarvis Auto needed to purchase a plot of land from Pan Am to keep their business alive. That plot of land is a possible spot for the expansion of the rail trail, and if Jarvis were to purchase that land, it could affect future plans for the trail. Jarvis had to go before the council to get an ordinance to amend zoning before they could purchase the land to expand. So, at the meeting, the council voted to approve the zoning amendment, thus allowing Jarvis to make the purchase and expand. City Manager Kevin Murphy and all of the councilors who weighed in on the issue are confident that the trail can still be built using other means. Councilor Rourke presented a motion that calls for lighting improvements to South Common. He, along with speakers from the public, made it clear that South Common needs to be cleaned up and utilized more for recreation, particularly sports for kids. Councilor Belanger amended the motion and asked that it be referred to the Parks Subcommittee to see about the potential for creating a turf field. Police Superintendent William Taylor, Fire Chief Jeffrey Winward, and Marianne Belletta presented a report on what the city plans on doing with the $1.2 million in grant funds the city was able to acquire to help fight opiate abuse. The plan is very detailed, and I highly encourage everyone to watch the presentation in its entirety. I will highlight two programs, however: the Community Opiate Outreach Program, or Co-op, and Project CARE. Co-op is a collaboration between the LPD, the Fire Department, the Health Department, and Lowell House. The goal is to build relationships with treatment facilities, conduct outreach to homeless encampments, conduct home visits to recent overdose victims, and much more. Project CARE is a partnership with the LPD, the Middlesex DA's office, and the Mental Health Association of Greater Lowell. The goal is to help children cope with trauma, build resiliency, and decrease the likelihood that substance abuse will be passed on to the next generation. Well, that's all I have for you today. Remember to watch the meetings in their entirety on LTC Channel 99 or on demand at ltc.org. Thanks for watching. Be swell.
I'm here with Dolores Sierra, Program Coordinator for the Coalition for a Better Acre, whose organization, Asociacion Latinos de Lowell, is working to empower and coordinate with the Latino community. Dolores, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Thank you for coming on the show.
No problem.
First off, tell us a little bit about the Asociacion and what it does.
Sure. So the Asociacion de Latinos de Lowell, it's a group of members of residents in our community that are all Hispanics. They come from different ethnicity of Spanish, so we have Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, Colombians, you name it. And their whole mission is to be representatives of the whole entire Hispanic community in Lowell. Mm-hmm. So we started off with 4 members, and now we're up to 30 members.
Now, what is it that the Asociacion wants to do as far as its goals?
Yep, so we just did our last meeting. We had a SWOT analysis, and tonight they're going to be analyzing all those different ideas and opportunities to see what kind of projects that they can bring out for the communities and the Latinos of Lowell.
What are some of the ills that they're trying to address?
So their whole mission is really to integrate more Latinos into the city of Lowell. So different events within the city, just having more gatherings for Latinos. There's been no really basis in the community for Latinos or an organization for them to go to talk about different issues. So the group is really a group where people come together. If there's an issue that they want to work on, they can all work on it, talk to different representatives and things like that.
Does this include politics?
Yes, it depends on what they want. The group is mostly run by them. So I'm just a facilitator. I bring the ideas in, and then from there they go with what they want to do. So right now, like I said, we're going to be working on analyzing different opportunities for the city, and they will be making a work plan on different events that they want to do for next year.
Any idea what some of those events are?
Well, we did apply for a grant from the city, and hopefully we get it. They're thinking of doing 3 different events in the summer that are culturally based of Hispanics ideas. One of them, I believe, is maybe like musical stuff, different ethnicity music or a cultural thing, cultural cooking stuff. So
definitely
some ideas.
Now, as a new organization that is trying to create a better good for a specific community, you obviously need resources. What is it that the Asociacion is looking for?
Correct. So one thing that this committee, which is part of CBA, it's a committee through CBA, is looking to do is work with some of the partnerships that we have already at CBA and connecting them to actually know the group as well, to help them with different activities and events as well.
Mm-hmm. And as far as the people that are attending the meetings, first off, how often are these meetings? They're
every 2 months on Wednesdays from 6:30 to 8 p.m. And they're every other Wednesday. And I'm sorry, what was the other question?
Oh, who goes to these meetings?
Oh, who goes to these meetings? Well, we CBA has we have a lot of our own residents. We have a lot of properties, so we have our own residents. We have residents throughout the community. We have people that go to different churches and stuff like that that come to these meetings.
Definitely. And lastly, where can somebody go to get more information on the Asociacion?
You can come to CBA. We have our flyers there. You can definitely contact me, and that's how you can get more information.
And now, let's join Deb Belanger at the Loading Dock Gallery at Western Ave Studios for some holiday shopping tips.
Welcome back to Let's Go with the Greater Merrimack Valley Convention and Visitors Bureau. I'm Deb Belanger, your host. Today, we are here at the complex of Western Avenue Studios. I'm standing in the beautiful Loading Dock Gallery. In this 5-acre complex, we have over 300 artists. This is the largest artist complex on the eastern seacoast, and I have to tell you, you have to come into Western Avenue Studios in the city of Lowell. What a gem. The conversion of this old mill building began in 2005, and what I have seen over the last 10 years is absolutely incredible. You can see works of art from fiber artists, woodworking artists, photographers, literary artists, fabric, textiles, you name it, you can find it here. In addition, they have a lunchroom, they have it's called the Black Onyx Room, where you can host various events. They do a number of productions there, but the most important thing is you can actually meet the artists, see how they do their work, and most of them will do customized work for you. So I urge you to come down this weekend on December 10th and 11th. They're doing a very special holiday open house. But if you can't make it this weekend, the first Saturday of every month from noon to 5, they open their doors so you can come and purchase art. You will be so glad you did. Again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.
If you happen to be window shopping in downtown Lowell over the past few weeks, you might have noticed a common theme. From the Arts League of Lowell to Gallery Z, over a dozen shops proudly displayed their handmade gingerbread houses. The Gingerbread House Trail, organized by Shop Lowell and Made in Lowell, was a way to bring a friendly competition and local sweet tooths to the streets.
The competition really is just to encourage a little creative and competitive fun among shop owners.
Decorative homes made of cakes and candy have been around for centuries. Remember Hansel and Gretel? All of the houses were constructed at Little Delight's Bakery on Merrimack Street to give each shop a uniform starting point.
And it's just a way to actually make this event feasible for different businesses and organizations to, pick up their gingerbread house, very uniform, and then all they have to do really is just decorate it.
We encourage that they reflect what the shop does and bring out the creativity in them and their workers, and it's just a really fun activity to do around this holiday season.
Knowing how many gingerbread houses there are across the city, it's wonderful to see the creativity, and it brings all of us together.
Judges were instructed to hit the Gingerbread Trail last weekend and rate each confectionery entry on creativity, how well the shop executed their theme, and deliciousness.
They don't get to eat the houses, but they actually get a look at, the judges will go around and score based on which house looks most delicious.
They all look delicious. The winner in all 3 categories was Cobblestone's Restaurant. Their collective imagination conjured up a pretzel log cabin with a fire pit, an upside-down snowman, some cracked ice on their skating pond, and a gingerbread man with a bite taken out of his head. Caroline Gallagher, LTC News.
The gingerbread houses are now on display at the Arts League of Lowell Gallery at 307 Market Street. You have an opportunity to vote for the People's Choice winner through next week. Check out Made in Lowell's Facebook page for the posting. In this week's Sunspot, Lowell Mayor Ed Kennedy talks with Lowell Sun Enterprise editor Chris Scott about the status of the Lowell High School renovation or construction project.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Chris Scott, the Enterprise Editor at The Sun. Thanks for tuning into this evening's edition of Sunspot. With me is the Mayor of Lowell, Ed Kennedy. Ed, thanks for coming in today.
Thank you
there's a
very much
lot going on in the city,
yes,
but we're going to talk about the high school.
Okay.
We're going to talk about whether to build a new high school, renovate a new high school, just do something with the high school. So why don't we'll just start off light. My understanding is tomorrow night there's a meeting, a public meeting where you're going to talk about the different plans and some of the information that's been out there, or maybe some of the misinformation that's been out there. Yeah. Maybe you can tell us where that's going to be and what time and who's invited. That'll
be an informational meeting that will be tomorrow evening, I believe at 6:30 at the auditorium at Lowell High School. And so that will be an opportunity, maybe the last opportunity at least for a while, to do that. I mean, ultimately, if there's if there's going to be funding for a new high school, that there'll have to be a public hearing before the City Council. So there'll be an opportunity later on, months from now. But for right now, the last opportunity, I believe, will be
Thursday evening. Now the public's invited to attend, correct?
Yes.
And who's actually overseeing that meeting? Is it the mayor's office? Is it the city council, school committee, a combination thereof?
I think it's being run actually by there's a committee that's been formed just for the high school, and so I think that they're actually hosting that meeting. But I would expect that there'll probably be most members of the city council there. That probably the city manager will be there, as well as most of the school committee.
Tell us just a little bit about that committee. And what is its purpose and who's on it?
Well, it's a diverse group. We've got that committee. We've got that committee to look at the high school and just how it's going to be built and what would be involved. There's another group called the Vision Committee, which I think in many ways is more important. And that committee is supposed to look at the curriculum to see what the curriculum would be for
which has been an interest of yours.
Yes, absolutely, and what the needs will be for a new high school if it's built. And so that committee is supposed to take a look at shaping the curriculum that would be for the 21st century, and also to make sure that the building matches the curriculum, so that we don't spend a lot of money to build a new high school or renovate the existing high school, only to find out that we were short on labs.
But the committee that I initially referenced, what is its name? Who is on it, and who appointed those people?
They were appointed, I think, by the city manager, and it's just it's a group made up of it's a diverse group, people made up from the school department and from the city. I know Mike McGovern's very involved on the city manager's side. For that, I don't think that anybody on the city council specifically sits on that. But
does it have a chairman or a chairwoman?
I'm not sure if who the chairman is.
And what is that committee's purpose?
That committee's purpose is just to look at what should be. What are all the options? Because we started off, the feasibility started off with a great number of options. They seem to have whittled it down to 2 or 3 options at this point. But we were looking at a farm up in Tuckerville. We were looking at Colley Stadium. We were looking at a bunch of different proposals, and so that's been whittled down. But they'll look at that and to look at whether or not if we keep the high school downtown, whether or not it's going to involve having to take additional land, and so that those types of things.
Okay, let's just get down to the nitty-gritty a little bit. My colleague Grant Walker, I thought, had a great piece in the newspaper earlier this week about the costs. It's the first time we actually saw we could associate some numbers to this project. And when I saw those numbers, they were far north of what I had been hearing. What was your reaction when you initially saw those numbers? And how does it kind of fit into the whole scheme of things? What are you hearing from people, from your constituents, since those numbers have been out there?
I was not surprised with the cost estimates for a new high school. I am and continue to be surprised at the cost estimates for renovating the existing school. You know, that is a very expensive item too, and I think that's the estimates for that are almost what people were originally going to think that a brand new high school was going to be.
So just for our viewers, excuse me for a minute, just so everyone knows. So right now, the cost for building a new high school on site is estimated to be what?
Well, I think that it's estimated to be about $320, $350 million.
Okay. What about a renovation?
Renovations is still well over $200 million, which I think is a lot of money. But I do think that it's important to realize that the feasibility study isn't done yet. And so, you know, a conversation about which way to go and how much will be a lot more worthwhile, I think, after the feasibility study is done. I think the numbers and the cost estimates will be stronger then and more reliable than they are right now. I would point out that Somerville's building a new high school. That they've got a high school of a little less than 1,200 kids, and their cost estimate is about $250 million.
And how many kids are at Lowell High now?
Many more than that. So that I would imagine, I would not be surprised if the cost of a new high school was in the range of $350 million to $400 million.
For a new school?
For a brand new school, and that's a lot of money.
Do you favor a new school as opposed to renovating the current school?
I think everybody would rather have a brand new school, but the cost is something that everybody's got to consider. There's, you know, particularly the city council, which will make the final decision, has to look at what it's going to cost, you know, what other items there are that have to be done. We've got 11 other schools in the city that we've treated as brand new schools for 30 years. And they're not brand new schools, they're 30 years old. And those schools are all starting to need work on their major building systems, on their roofs, on their HVAC systems and so forth.
And there are other city buildings that need work too.
Yeah, absolutely. We could use a new police station, we could use a new DPW facility. Lasher Park needs some work, the auditorium needs a little bit more work. And so there's a lot to consider. And the city is in strong financial shape, has a good amount of borrowing authority, you know, bonding capacity. But you know, we're going to have to look hard at whether or not we should go with a brand new high school or renovate the existing high school.
Some of the proponents who want either a new high school or a major renovation to the current one are saying that if the city doesn't, that this should be the city's #1 capital project, on a priority list, and that if it doesn't get done, one fella actually said to me yesterday, there'll be white flight from the city, that the city will lose its identity and all the momentum that the city has built up over the last 2.5, 3 decades will be lost. Do you agree with that?
No, I think that's extreme and incorrect. You know, and I would point to Lawrence. Lawrence has a brand new high school, a relatively new high school that they built brand new. And I'm not sure that people were flocking into Lawrence because they had a new high school. I truly believe that it's the curriculum within the high school that's more important.
Going back to one of your pet projects.
And that's what gets people to move into the city, and that's what we should really be focused on. Now, along with that, if we're going to have a curriculum for the 21st century, then we need to do something over at the high school that's different than what we have there now, so that the facility should match or give us the capacity to improve that curriculum. But I think the curriculum is the most important thing. I mean, you look at Boston Latin, and people would love to go to Boston Latin. That's an old building. So it's what goes on inside the school rather than what it looks like outside that's really the most important thing.
I'd like to talk to you more about curriculum. Maybe we can get into that, deeper on another day. Let's just talk about downtown versus Collie. Do you have a preference?
Yeah, I think downtown makes a lot more sense. I think it makes more sense just from the transportation standpoint. In other words, if you were to put the high school at Cawley, you know, students in Pawtuckaville would have a long bus ride every day, back and forth. You know, probably 45 minutes to get to the high school and back. Conversely, if you were to put the high school in Pawtuckaville, the Belvedere kids would have the same long trek. So
a long trek, really? It's probably only 3 miles as the crow flies.
Well, you know, you're not going to drive it. It's a good take.
At rush hour.
Right.
And trying to cross a bridge. No.
Yeah, exactly. It just takes a long time.
Right.
And anybody that lives in one of those extremes knows that it takes a long time to get from one end of the city to the other at a lot of different times.
But let me ask you, Lawrence built a high school. It was downtown. And that gigantic structure is still in downtown Lawrence. It's in North Lawrence on the north side of the Merrimack River. They built a big high school out on their athletic fields.
Yes.
On the other end of town, out near 495. Sound familiar? It's almost the same scenario as Cawley.
Yeah.
So my question is, has there been a field trip to Lawrence to see how they've done it and to see if it works?
A field trip probably would be beneficial in the spring when the feasibility study is done. I think that, you know, that it would be good for the city council to do a field trip to Lawrence. But, you know, I don't think that just because Lawrence did that doesn't make it be a good idea.
Oh, no, I'm not saying that. It's just that's what they chose, and it would be interesting to see if it works, you know, and to see if people down there are happy with it.
You know, the other thing that you have to consider as well is that Lawrence is considerably smaller than Lowell geographically. So that, you know, Lawrence is maybe 6 or 7 square miles. We're 14 square miles. And our high school needs to be significantly bigger. And the other thing too is that, you know, in order to accommodate a high school at Cawley, I'm not sure what we would do with all of the athletic fields there. I mean, that's quite an impressive athletic complex, really, there, and some of that would have to be given up. And I would imagine some of the school campus would have to lie in Tewksbury. I think, you know, but more than that, and I think what's going to be the driving force behind that decision is going to be how much is it going to cost. And
excuse me.
If it's going to cost, you know, whatever it's going to cost to keep the high school downtown, it's going to cost a lot more to move it into the outskirts of the city.
Let's just hit on the feasibility study for a couple of minutes. We've kind of touched on it, but I'm sure it will address many matters from A to Z. But you as the mayor, head of the city council, head of the school committee, what do you need that feasibility study to tell the voters of Lowell?
I needed to provide as many options as it can so that we've got options to look at. I was on the city council when the field house was built and the other building. And at that point, and you'll laugh at these numbers, but we had, that project originally was scheduled to cost $19.5 million. And there were not 6 votes on the city council for it to pass at that time. And so we cut out certain things, got it down to 16.5, and it passed. And my memory is that it still just passed with a 6-3 vote.
It's good to have that institutional knowledge.
It is. And those buildings, although they were built in the early 1980s, they've not held up as well as the Kirk Street buildings at all. So it's, I mean, there's a lot of truth in the Adam, that it's they don't build them like they used to, right? So
well, you had that big block that from the field house that fell out about a year or so ago, you know, right near the entrance. And that's a much more newer building.
Right. And there was a time years ago when that field house was considered to be state-of-the-art, probably the best field house in the Commonwealth. I'm not sure that's any longer.
It's got one strange indoor track, though. I can attest to that. All right, so in wrapping up, anything else you'd like to say about?
The only thing I'd like to say is one of the things that they did down in Somerville is they put it on the ballot. So while we had 4 questions during the presidential election, they had 5. Their 5th question was, should we build the new high school, and do you want it to be funded with a separate assessment? So they did like a debt exemption type of issue, and that's the only way that Lowell could do the same thing to do a debt exemption would be to put it on the ballot. But I think that that's something that we're going to have to consider too, when we're looking at which option to go with and how we're going to pay for it.
And that wraps it up for this week's edition of LTC News. If you're watching and have any questions, comments, or story ideas, we want to hear from you. Send us an email at ltcn@ltc.org or like us on Facebook. I'm Al Gentili. Be well.